Chapter 7. The Monster's Story. After I had left the laboratory, I escaped into the country, outside the town. I soon felt hungry and thirsty, and my first food was fruit which I found on some trees near a river. I drank from the river and then lay down and went to sleep. At first my eyes and ears did not work very well. But after a while I began to see and hear clearly. One day snow began to fall. Of course, I had never walked in snow before, and I found that it made my feet very cold. I realized that I needed food and a place to get warm. Soon I saw a small hut where an old man was cooking his breakfast over a fire. When the old man saw me, he shouted loudly and ran away as fast as he could. I did not understand what the man was doing, but I wanted to be near the fire, so I sat down in the warmth and ate the man's breakfast. Then I walked across empty fields for some hours until I reached a village. I went into one of the houses, but there were children inside. They began to scream when they saw me, and their mother fainted. The whole village came to see what was the trouble. Some of the people ran away when they saw me, but the others shouted and threw stones at me. They wanted to kill me. I was badly hurt, but I escaped and ran into the open country. Later, I found an empty hut, which was built against the wall of a small house. I was afraid to go into the house after what had happened in the village, so I hid in the hut. There I was safe and could escape from the cold and hide from the people who wished to hurt me. And then I found that there was a small hole in the wall between the hut and the house. Through this hole I could see into the room next to the hut. Three people lived in the house: a beautiful girl, an old man, and a young man. Day after day I watched the three people. I saw how kind they were to each other. I wanted so much to go into the house and be with them, but I knew I must stay in the hut. I could not forget how the village people had hurt me when I tried to go into the house there. Each night, after the people in the house had gone to sleep, I stole some of their food for myself. But soon I realized that the old man was blind, and I realized too that often the three of them did not have enough to eat. I saw the two young people put extra food on the blind man's plate, although they were hungry themselves. When I saw that, I stopped stealing their food. Their life was already hard enough, so I went back to the wild fruit in the woods. I tried to help them in other ways. During the night I cut firewood for them, and added it secretly to the wood which the young man had cut during the day. I was very happy to see how much this pleased the young man. After a while I began to understand some of the noises that the people made to each other. The first words that I understood were words like fire and bread. I also learned that the three people called each other by names. The girl was Agatha, the young man was Felix, and the old man was called Father. I tried to make the noises that they made, and slowly I began to speak. The two young people were very beautiful. One day I saw my own face in the water of the river. It was a terrible face. I understood why people were frightened, why they shouted and threw stones. I knew then that I could not let these beautiful people see me. They would be frightened by my horrible face and body. The summer was coming, and I continued to watch and learn. I also continued to help the two people and their father, and did many jobs for them in the night. They were always surprised in the morning when they saw what I had done. I heard them talk about the good creature who did these wonderful things. But the family were often sad, and I wish, excuse me, but the family were often sad, and I wished I could make them happy. I looked forward to the time when I could speak well enough to talk to them, and I was happy because I was sure I would soon have 3 good friends. Chapter 8. One day in the summer, a lady on horseback rode up to the house and knocked on the door. She had dark hair and was very beautiful. The family were all very pleased to see her. I soon learned that her name was Sophie. She could not speak the family's language, and each evening Felix taught her some words. This was a very great help to me, because I was able to learn the meaning of many words that I had not been able to understand before. Felix taught Sophie from books about what had happened in the world in the past. So I learned about the Greeks and Romans, and about Christ, and about the first white man in America, and the sad story of the Indians. I could not understand why men who knew all about good and evil could hate and kill each other. I learned other things too. I learned that people think it is very important to have money and to come from a good family. I learned of the love between mother and father and child, and I realized that I had no family. The more I learned, the more I thought, and the more unhappy I became. Soon I discovered who Sophie was. The two families had met in France after Sophie and her father arrived there from Turkey, their own country. Sophie's father was put in prison by the French, but Felix and his father had helped him to escape and leave France. When the French discovered this, Felix and his family lost all their lands and money and had to leave France forever. Now I knew why they were so sad and why they were poor. But that was not all. Sophie and Felix loved each other, and Sophie's father had promised that they could marry. Then, when he learned that Felix had lost all his money, he broke his promise. But Sophie loved Felix very much, so she took some money and escaped from her father to search for Felix. I had learned to love these good people, and I could not wait another day to introduce myself. I decided to speak first to the father, because he was blind and would not be frightened by my terrible face and body. One day the 3 young people went for a walk while the old man rested. When they had gone, I went to the door of the house and knocked on it. The old man told me to enter and to sit down. "Thank you," I said. "I am a traveler, and I'm tired and sad. I have no family or friends. The people that I want to have as my friends have never seen me. If they don't take me into their home, I shall be alone in the world." "Don't be so sad," the old man said. "You will find that the hearts of men are full of love. If these friends are good people, they will welcome you." "They are kind, and the best people in the world," I said. "But when they meet me, they may not see a kind creature who has helped them. Instead, they may see a monster, and they will hate me." "That mustn't happen," the old man said. "My family and I have had our difficult times, and will help you." "You are a very good man," I said, "and if you help me, I shall be able to live with my friends and enjoy their love." At that moment I heard the young people returning from their walk. I caught the old man's hand and cried, "Now is the time. Save me and help me. You and your family are the friends that I am talking about." Then the door opened, and in came Felix, Sophie, and Agatha. Their faces were filled with horror and fear when they saw me. Agatha fainted, and Sophie ran out of the house. Felix ran forward and pulled me away from his father. He threw me to the ground and hit me again and again with his heavy stick. I did not lift a hand against him. I did not want to hurt him, or any of them. My heart was heavy, and all hope left me. I ran out of the house, and later returned silently to my hut. Nobody saw me. I sat in the dark hut and felt both angry and sad. One half of me wanted to hurt the people who had hurt. Excuse me. Chapter 9. I sat in my dark hut and felt both angry and sad. One half of me wanted to hurt the people who had hurt me. The other half of me still loved them. In the end, I decided to try to speak to the old man again. I fell into an unhappy sleep, but when I woke in the morning, the family had gone. They had left the house during the night. I knew the name of only one other person, although I had seen you, Frankenstein, for only a few moments. I knew that I belonged to you. When I had left your house, I had picked up a small bag. There was a book in the bag, and I could now read it. From it, I learned my Creator's name and address. You had made me, but why had you not looked after me and saved me from this pain and unhappiness? I decided to go to Geneva to find you. One day, as I was traveling, I saw a young girl running along the side of a river. Suddenly, she fell into the water. I jumped into the river, fought against the fast moving water, and brought her back to land. While I was doing this, the girl's father, who was looking for her, reached us. He was carrying a gun, and when he saw me, he fired. The bullet hit my arm and broke it. I fell to the ground in great pain, and the man and the girl ran into the woods as fast as they could and left me. The bullet was deep in my arm, and I lost a lot of blood. After some days, my arm began to get better, but I became sadder and angrier than before. I had saved the girl's life, and how did they thank me? With a bullet in the arm. I began to realize that there was no happiness for me in life. Hate grew stronger in me every day. Hate for you, my Creator, who had made me. 2 months later, I reached Geneva. That evening, I hid among some trees outside the town and went to sleep. But I woke when a little boy ran into my hiding place. I thought I would catch the child and make him my friend before he was old enough to be frightened of my terrible face. I caught the little boy, but when the child saw me, he covered his eyes with his hands and screamed loudly. "Let me go, you monster!" the child shouted. "Let me go, or I will tell my father, Mr. Frankenstein. He will call the police, and they'll punish you." "Frankenstein!" I shouted. "You belong to my enemy, the man that I want to hurt." The child fought and screamed, and I put my hand round his neck to stop him shouting. In a moment, the child lay dead at my feet. I looked down at his body and was pleased with what I had done. I knew that the death of this child would hurt you, Victor Frankenstein, my Creator. Then I saw something bright round the child's neck. It was a gold chain, and on the end of it was a picture of a very beautiful woman. I knew that a beautiful woman would never smile at me, and I wanted to run into Geneva and kill as many people as I could. But I stopped myself and went to look for another hiding place. Soon I found a hut, which seemed to be empty, but when I entered, I saw a pretty young woman asleep on the floor. I hated her because she was pretty, so I put the gold chain into one of her pockets. And then, before she could wake up, I ran away. I knew the police would think that she had killed the little boy.